My name is Ryan Root. I am the largest convicted anabolic steroid dealer in U.S. history. When I was younger, I was immature, underdeveloped. I didn't, grow like everyone else around me. Even in my teens and in my early 20s, I couldn't grow any facial hair. When I was 13, I began getting picked on because I was so skinny. It made me start hitting the gym, and I never looked back. Even though I was hitting the gym, I still didn't develop like the people around me. It seemed like I had to work twice as hard in order to get half the results of everyone around me. And when my peers would, put in half the effort that I was, they would get bigger, look better, get better results than I did. This led to confidence problems. I wanted to please everybody around me, so I let people walk on me. I didn't get a lot of respect. I didn't stand out. I wasn't, ever noticed and looked over a lot. So when I was 23, I did my first anabolic steroid cycle. I did Sustanon, which is a testosterone blend. Just did 1 milliliter a week, which is a very moderate amount. And I did 10 milligrams of D-ball a day. I know that doesn't mean anything to everyone, but it is a very, very mild cycle. It's not a lot. So from this, I hyper-responded. I absolutely blew up. My entire body morphed. I put on 30 pounds in just 5 weeks. And in the same span of time, 5 weeks, I put 100 pounds on my bench. A lot of people won't, I've had a lot of people say that this is impossible, but it did happen. And it is a testament, I believe, to how low my testosterone was, throughout my whole life. And then when I finally got that testosterone, my body responded, more than it does for most people. But this response is what drove my passion. Because it so dramatically improved my quality of life. Like now everybody started to respect me. I was confident. For instance, everybody wanted to be my friend. Suddenly, everybody wanted to befriend me. When I would walk into a bar, all eyes would turn to look at me, and people started just parting. The crowds would just start part in front of me whenever I walked through. I would accidentally bump into somebody, and they would turn to look a little angry and then see my impressive stature and then apologize to me. When I was in college, during the summers, I worked as a plumber for my brother-in-law. I hated the job. I was terrible at it. I didn't care anything about it. But just from standing before him looking stout, he suddenly just gave me a raise. It just changed my entire quality of life. Everything was better, from feeling better to, now I stand out. I'm much more muscular. I developed perfectly, like all muscle striations. The muscles just grew in the right area. It dramatically improved my quality of life. So I lived 2 different worlds, one before steroids and one after, and I vastly prefer the world after. So when at this time, I was in college for biochemistry, and this made me tailor my degree to the study of hormones. I started picking classes that were tailored towards hormones, and then because of the passion of how much it improved my life, I also studied on my own voraciously. Every day, I would research what these compounds did, what these chemicals were, and how they affect the body, and I just read and read and read and just took in a myriad of information. So naturally, because of the way I looked, people would come to me to ask me how I did this and ask me if I could help them do the same thing. So at first I just started, getting stuff just at cost for people to help them, and I started dramatically improving people's lives, quality of lives, the same way that I improved my own, and people started really respecting me and admiring me for that. Pretty soon, like, people started to understand that if you want to look your best, look and feel your best, you come to me and I'll help you do that. It drove, like, for once in my life, I was finally creating value. I actually was able to help people in a really meaningful way. So it drove more passion. I became more passionate about it, more studying, more understanding. Pretty soon, I started to think about, well, it was time to probably monetize this. I was doing it for so many people that that I might as well, just charge people for it. And that just came by just marking up the products that I was getting. I also learned, I'm a social chameleon, so I was able to befriend anybody who had what I wanted, and really find out their sources and figure out supply chains and orchestrate deals and be able to bring it to more people. So it's at some point I was able to, in doing this, I was able to find a source from China that had unheard of low prices. This source was, one of a kind. I almost had to have had almost the best prices in the entire country at this time. So I ended up developing this source and being able to help more people. And pretty soon, I became one of the man to go to in my entire city. So everybody knew that to come to me if you wanted to look and feel your best. I was the man to come see if you wanted to do this. So I still lived in a small city, and I wasn't making a lot of money. Even though I was the man to come see, I still didn't have a ton of clients because it was a small city, and I wasn't making a lot of money. So at this point, at some point, I was actually arrested for a small time, same thing, possession and distribution of anabolic steroids. I was set up by a CI, and I had to go do a short state prison bid. I just did like 6 months in a state prison, and I got out, and I had 2 years of parole afterwards. When I got out, right before I was going into prison, I took the source to one of my best clients at the time. He was a friend of mine, but he was also one of my best clients. And I didn't know what to do, but I was trying to set up something for the future. And I gave him the source, and I said, here you go, use this however you want. But whatever you develop, whatever comes of this, when I get out in the future, I may come back to you, and I'd like to be a part of it. So I did my bid. I get out of prison, and I'm on parole. And at first, for a long time, I tried to stay away from going back to the same thing I was doing. But I was, I had a felony now. I couldn't get a job. I applied to a whole bunch of different, positions. I couldn't get anything. I was getting depressed. I went back and started doing steroids again. It made me feel a lot better, look a lot better. And this time I didn't have any job, so I had a lot of time to work out. So I started working out really hard, and I spent double sessions in the gym. And once again, I started getting really big and looking really good. And it was a billboard for what I was doing. So people were coming to me asking me again to help them out, and I tried to deny it for a little while, but I was dirt poor. I couldn't support myself. I moved in with my grandmother. Living in my grandmother's house, there was times when I only had like $5 to eat for the day. So I used to go to McDonald's And that's back when they had dollar double cheeseburgers. I used to buy like 4 of those. And that was my food for the day. You know, people would ask me, hey, let's go out to eat. Let's go to Applebee's or something. And I wouldn't. I said, no, I can't do that. I can't afford that. Things were just, you know, I couldn't support myself. So eventually I started to get back into selling steroids again. I had the same source. I mean, I still had to connect. So, you know, it was still a really valid source, and so I started picking up locally, and that helped a little. But again, I wasn't making a lot of money. And then, you know, at some point, so one of my clients told me about this online forum. This online forum was a source forum, and I went, you know, where all these sources could, you know, lay out their products and sell over the internet to anyone in the United States. So I went and researched, and I found out that I saw all these sources, I saw all these people selling steroids, and I found out that this was the largest source forum in the United States, or I mean in the world. And it got something like a million unique hits. So I mean there was a massive amount of traffic on here. And I started researching and started looking at all these other sources on there, and I could compete with all of them. I couldn't believe this. Like I kind of thought that there's no way I would be able to compete, you know, with people all over the country. But you know, as I said, I had a great Chinese source, and I could compete. So I started really putting together a plan to sell online. So you know, I bought like a bigger stock than normal. I had my laptop. I had a duffel bag full of steroids and a laptop, and I just went on there and I made a list of products that I had. I was gonna, you know, just shoot my shot, and I posted online this list. So now let me go, and at the same time, the friend that I had given the source to before I left suddenly called me, right when I was about ready to start this online business. All of a sudden I got a phone call from him. He said, "Hey, what are you doing?" I was kind of a little surprised to hear from him. It's been like 2 years. And I said, you know, not much, how you doing? He said, "Hey, I'm almost at your house. Can I stop by?" It was a little weird, but sure, yeah, it would be good to see you. So he stopped by. So now this is a guy who, I don't even know if he finished high school, and he wasn't ever able to really hold down a job. He had sold everything. He was a dealer and sold just about everything. But he was never able to make it big or really do anything. And so when he came to visit me, he pulled up in this brand new, full decked out with aftermarket improvements, brand new Hummer. I mean, this thing must have been $80,000-$90,000. And he gets out and he comes up. He's got this big smile on his face, and he gives me a big hug. He grabs his bag out of his back seat. And then I said, "Oh, what is going on?" So he said, "Let's go in the house." Okay, so he comes into my house, and he opens this bag, and it's full of steroids and money, like wrapped 100, stacks of hundreds. There must have been $30,000 in there, and I had never seen this much money in one place. I said, "What is going on?" And he just, smiles at me. He starts throwing these bottles of steroids at me. And I'm just like catching them, and what is happening here? And he says that the source he gave me, I turned it into a gold mine. I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe this. He said, I made $900,000 last year. Now he sold a little bit of everything, but he was making the most money off of the steroids. So he never told me exactly how he did it, but he gave me clues as to how he set up this operation. I asked him a lot of questions, and he gave me a lot of answers without clearly defining exactly what he was doing. But what he did is he imparted a motivation in me, because I was already about to start this online, and now he kind of reinforced the idea that this can really work. And now I had sort of like a vague idea of a blueprint, because he did give me some information about how his operation ran. So now I'm more motivated than ever, and so I go and I post online. I just went on I made this list, and all I did was post it online. That's what everybody was doing prior to that. Now, to understand exactly what happened at this point, it's important to understand the zeitgeist of the anabolic world at the time, or the ethos of sources. People in relation to sources. So in the late 90s and the early 2000s, steroids were hard to get. They were very expensive, and they're hard to get, especially in the 90s. And they became easier and easier to get, but but there was still this, every black market, everybody in the black market was terrified of getting fraud, of getting fake gear. Gear is what juice heads call any of their anabolic steroids, whether it be the pills or the injectables or whatever. It's all just broadly defined as gear. So everybody was terrified of getting fake products. If your name isn't known, and if you're not selling a brand that is well known, and at the time, the concept of what's called an underground lab, or UGL, or an underground lab, where this is where people just make their own stuff and slap their own label on it. That was almost unheard of at the time. Maybe there was just a couple, and it had just started, but it was widely. It wasn't common, and people weren't that accepting of it yet. So when I posted on here, even though, to further explain, my Chinese source, had one of the top brands of, there's 5 or 6 brands that people accepted. But you have to be selling a brand that people accept, and you yourself as the source have to be well known and accepted, and you have to be branded yourself. And I was just a nobody posting. I didn't know exactly how this would go over, but I was selling British Dragon gear, which was a well-known name. And ironically, the original British Dragon had gone under a couple years ago. I think they all got busted a couple years prior, but my source just started making stuff and slapping a British Dragon name on it, because they were gone now, and selling the British Dragon name, repurposing the British Dragon name and just selling it. Now, most people knew this, but the new British Dragon was quality just like the old British Dragon, so it was just kind of like one of those unique scenarios where people slapping labels on this new stuff was accepted, because both, whether you had the old stuff or the new stuff, it was both quality, and nobody seemed to really care. So I had the new British Dragon. It was incredibly cheap. I had incredible prices. And so another thing that Gene, or my friend who came back, or the source's name was Gene, had taught me was how to reduce my price with this Chinese source, how to reduce it even further than I had it. So I went on there, mentioned Gene's name, and this Chinese source must have been one of the biggest suppliers in the entire world at the time, because they were supplying the whole world. And everybody knew this British Dragon name, and they were the only ones doing it. So to get an idea of how big they must have been, the entire world knew who they were. Well, when I mentioned Gene's name, the guy knew exactly what I was talking about, had a lot of respect for Gene, and I told him that, well, I'm the one who introduced you to him. I gave him the source originally. It kind of put us on terms, and then I said, well, Gene's paying this, I want to pay this too. And the guy just kind of, although he gave me a little pushback, I started saying I can be as big as Gene, but you need to give me this price reduction. And He did. So now I'm paying even lower. But I already had almost the lowest prices in the country, but now I'm paying lower, so my profit margins are going to be able to go up. But the problem was that I wasn't branded myself. Nobody knew me. So I was met, when I made that post, I was met with animosity. I was met with animus, anger, hatred. People just, they don't even want to deal with a new person because the rate of fraud had been so high. So I pretty much got laughed off of the board, and the moderators of the forum even took my post down. And then pretty quickly they posted again, or they PM me, private messaged me and said that because of all the fraud lately, we have a new rule that you have to create a website. And then if you create a website that shows that you're at least serious enough to put that kind of effort in, and you're less likely to be fraudulent. So all I had to do was make a website. Now, it sounds easy, but at the time, I didn't know anything about a website. And it wasn't as easy as it is now. But I didn't know anything about it. So to me, it was almost like, well, that's done. I have no idea how to do that, and I'm not going to be able to. So I guess this dream is done. But I started to think about it, and I had a friend who did know about that. He was one of my clients, so I just gave him some free steroids and asked him to, if he could set me up a website. He said, sure, I can do that. Okay. So, but it wasn't that easy. It's, now he just sets me up a website and I go. So the issue was that you can't just set up a website on Wix or WordPress and throw a .com after it and have a website. It's traceable, right back to a person. So the website has to be hosted outside the country in a country where it's illegal, and where the United States wouldn't have any jurisdiction. So if anybody knew what was going on and they went and searched, they wouldn't have jurisdiction to go, get the contents. It's hosted outside the country. They wouldn't be able to get the email contents, or they just wouldn't have any jurisdiction. And plus, it's legal in that country, so there's nothing anybody could really do. So I picked Isle of Man because it was just a cheap domain and steroids were legal there. So my website was called bdsupplements.im for Isle of Man. BD Supplements because I sold British Dragon, so I had British Dragon Supplements, bdsupplements.im. So before the website was up, from that post that was up for 1 hour, which everybody laughed at, I almost got laughed off the site, I got 3 emails, and I call these people the ambassadors. The ambassadors were people who, so this forum had, it had a point system, right? So if you are a member that helps a lot of people, that gives out good information and just posts a lot, and people respect you in the community, you get points. So these points, accrue and aggregate, and the people with the most points, have a lot of respect in the community. So like 2 of these guys had a lot of points, and I knew, and I started researching them, and I see that they had a lot of respect within the community. So each of these people said that, listen, we can't just buy these things from you because there's too much fraud. So, but we like British Dragon stuff, and you're the only one in here on this forum that's offering British Dragon, and we like British Dragon. So if you can send us something, just send us for free and we'll post about it. So I was reticent to just give stuff away for free. And that was short-sighted to me. In retrospect, I shouldn't have been so reticent to do this. But if you have a good quality product, the important thing is to get it out there. And that was my first business lesson, is that's important. So I shouldn't have been so reticent to do it, but I did do it. And I rationalized it by saying, well, I don't want to give a product away for free, so how about if I send you this, you guys, these products, when you get them and you see that they're good, then you pay me later. And they said, okay, they all agreed. So I sent out to these 3 people. So I remember, so at this time I actually got a job at the emergency room. I actually had to volunteer at the hospital for months, like 4 to 6 months or something. And I finally, while I volunteered, I did good work, so I asked for a job and they gave me a job. So now I had a job. I was only making like $9 an hour, like, and it came out to about $270 a week, and I still couldn't support myself and on that income. But so, and I was selling a little bit of steroids on the side, but it still wasn't quite enough. So I was working at the emergency room, and I remember checking my email in the emergency room. I was, working on my legal business in there, which in retrospect was pretty stupid because the IT department could see everything we were doing on those computers. But I did it and nothing ever came of that. So so while I was checking at work, and all of a sudden one day I remember seeing, I had, prior to that I wasn't getting any emails, obviously, because I wasn't a source on this forum yet. There was no way to really get my name out there. I only just had those 3 ambassadors, and I don't even know why I checked it. But this one day I checked it, and there was like five emails on there from people I didn't know. And I read them, and all of a sudden they started saying that, so one of the ambassadors, his handle on there was Sicko, C-Y-C-O. And Sicko they said, Sicko sent me, he said, you have good stuff, I'm interested in the British Dragon, here's what I want, here's my order, how do I pay? And each of them said something like this, and I was like, where is this coming from? So I didn't understand how suddenly all of a sudden people are asking me for ways to pay them. And so I went on the site, the forum, and sure enough, this Sicko had posted pictures of the stuff. This was like a couple weeks later, and he said he started doing it, and it was really good. And he got the shipment in 2 or 3 days. This is a good source. This is a good source. I got it from, and he couldn't post my name because I wasn't an official source yet. So people started PMing him, hey, where'd you get that British Dragon stuff? And he would give them my email address. And so that's how some of these guys started coming in. Ironically at the time, I didn't even think far enough ahead to, because I didn't even, the way I got laughed off the site, I didn't even really think about how to get paid. So when they asked me, how do you pay? I'm like, I haven't even really thought about it. Everybody does Western Union. So at first I just had to give them my name, my real name. And I had them send money to me. And I fixed that problem pretty quickly, but the first few people sent money directly to me, which is not very anonymous. But when I got these orders, I took this money, right? I think the 3 orders I had came to about $1,150. And I probably was going to make about $550 of that was profit for me. And I remember, and I had never made that much before in one day. So when I went to the Western Union, I picked up this money and I had this $1,150 in my hand. Like, I just felt this warm sensation through my chest. And I was just like, it felt good. It was dopamine just rushing through my system. And I felt great, and I felt motivated, and I found it drove more passion. So when I sent these guys their products, so one of the key factors that led to, that eventually led to my success over all these other sources that are on there, was that black market steroid dealers are not known to be masters of business administration, right? So they were terrible businessmen. So at this time, when I came in and started implementing some pretty simple, good business practices, I was the only one doing that. And so for instance, free shipping. Everybody else was charging for shipping at the time, and I did priority shipping, which got the packages there in 2 or 3 days, which nobody else was doing at the time. Everybody was sending their products snail mail, and wasn't supposed to touch that. Everybody was sending their products snail mail, so it would take even domestically, it would take 2 weeks for everybody to get their order. And as simple as it sounds, I was the only one doing it at the time. Fast shipping and good customer service, quality products. So at the time, the customer service was terrible. Again, Black market anabolic steroid dealers don't have a concept of the customer's king, good customer service. So when you have a lot of people who are, and you have something that they want, and you start to get a lot of, an audience of people who become like sycophantish, right, and servile, and they start, they start like kissing all these guys' ass, and it starts to build up a mania within these other black market steroid dealers, and they would get, and you could see the mania develop, and they become megalomaniacs and start to think that they're almost godlike, and if anybody tries to question them or say, hey, there's something wrong, they would immediately get defensive and yell at the person with degrade them and do you know who I am? You don't talk to me like that. And I noticed them doing this. They were ostracizing their own customer base, their own client base, and the way you're talking to this guy, he's not going to client anymore. You're just destroying your own client base, and it happened a lot. And I told myself right there that I wasn't going to do that. That the customer is king, and that I would take ownership of any problems and make it right with the people. So when I came in with fast shipping, quality products, free shipping, and good customer service, I was the only one doing that. And so, by the way, after I started implementing these simple good business practices, the entire industry shifted to what I was doing. And these simple things, I was the first one to do it. But that's what kind of started generating some of the massive audience that I began to gain. So when I sent those other people the products, the same thing happened in 2 or 3 days. Products are good. They start posting. So I got a hold of the sicko guy. I emailed him. I said, hey, I just got 3 of your guys. Thank you so much. That's great. I said, by the way, if you can keep sending me people, then don't worry about paying for your own. And he goes, a few, he goes, a few people. I got about 30 I'm going to send you. And that kind of shows you about what one good, another business lesson is you find one good person, one good ambassador or one good salesman, and it can totally change the face of a business. So, and this is what he did. This guy just kept sending people, and shortly after that, and for the rest of the time, he obviously got all his stuff for free. So what one good salesman can do, it can absolutely change the face of the business. So he was sending me people, and another one was actually sending me people too. And pretty soon, I had orders coming in. I was having a few a day to like 5 a day, and it was the same thing. So fast shipping, quality products, good customer service, free shipping. The main thing was the 2 or 3 day shipping that was brand new to people. And when they would post that, I got my products in 2 or 3 days, and everybody started posting online, and I started encouraging people to post online. Well, that just drove in more people. So now, mind you, I'm not even an official source on this forum yet. I don't even have a name out there. This is all just through word of mouth. But at this time, I have probably 30 clients, and in just a few weeks, or maybe I don't even think it was a month. 30, 40 clients. It's starting to float in. And so eventually the website was created, right? So now I had this, the website, my friend got done with the website, we're hosted outside the country, we have all these things. So I went back to the mods and I told them, okay, I've complied with what you needed me to do. Here's the website. Can I become a source? Well, nobody answered me for a while, right? And I didn't know what was happening. I went and I asked them again, hey, I have this website. I've complied with your regulations. Can I be a source? And nothing again. So I just kind of days went by. I didn't know what was going on, but I was getting more and more customers. So it was kind of like, I was kind of busy, and I didn't think about it. And then one day, one day I woke up in the morning, and all of a sudden I had like, double, maybe even triple the amount of emails that I normally do. And I didn't know like why suddenly would I have that. And I noticed that, yeah, these are all orders, and people are most of these are orders. This is what happened. What happened? Why did I just suddenly double my my audience, my client base in one day? So I go around and I look, and I get on the forum, I sign into my account, and something looks different, but I can't quite tell what it is. And I notice I also have a bunch of PMs or private messages, and I start reading those, and it's more people who want to make orders. I'm like, what is going on? Where are all these people coming from? I don't understand. And something looked different. So then I finally noticed that I actually had a source tag now. So suddenly, just like that, they switched me to a source tag, and now I was up on the list. I was listed in the ranks of all the sources, and I was officially up and running as an official source on, now, again, this is the largest anabolic steroid source forum in the world. So things just started to get better. Now, ironically, when I started this whole idea, I was hoping, like begging, or not begging, but praying for an extra $200 to $300 a week. Because if I could make $200 to $300 extra a week, I would be comfortable, and that would be perfect. Like that would be the sweet spot. And I even thought that was a little overzealous. Like that was, I was asking too much for that. I had no idea what to expect from this, and $200 or $300 extra a week was probably too much, but that's what would be perfect, and that's what I was aiming for as a perfect scenario. Now, so again, I was making about $270 a week, plus a little bit in local sales, which wasn't much. I could not support myself. I couldn't even go out to eat for dinner. I wouldn't have been able to. If I didn't live in my grandmother's house, I would not have been able to pay my bills. I may have been out on the street. So all of this just went so synergistically and so well that I went from that $270 a week or whatever to, within 6 months, I was pulling in about, this business just absolutely blew up. After I became a source, and more orders went out and more people started posting, this blew up, like more than I could ever have dreamed or ever imagined. So I went from making $270 a week to I was pulling in about, within 6 months, I was pulling in about $21,000 a week. And it just kept going up from there. Within a year, I was pulling in $40,000 a week. Within a year, it just kept going up. Within this is like $220,000 a month. Within a year, 2 years, we were up to closer to, getting closer to $100,000 a week. We're talking about $300,000 a month. By a year in, I was a millionaire. Probably about 2.5 years in, I moved to New York. I bought this. I was able to get a $9,000 apartment, and I lived in. I moved to the greater New York City area, so it wasn't quite New York. I lived in the Jersey side, but right on the Hudson, overlooking Manhattan, in this penthouse, $9,000 a month penthouse. I got a brand new Jaguar. I leased it. I leased this brand new Jaguar, $130,000 Jaguar, F-Type, freaking 550 horse for this tiny car. It was just amazing. I had a new girl, gorgeous. Everything, and everything just kept getting better. So at this point, when I'm pulling in, probably like within the 6 months, I'm probably pulling in about $21,000 a week. It was a very fast change. It absolutely blew up and took me by surprise. So there was a point when I became overwhelmed. I woke up one morning I checked my emails. So the way my day worked is I wake up in the morning, I would check the emails. I would usually go to the gym, then go to work at the emergency room. I would work the whole time there on my legal business as well as work, and I had to, when I could, I would do some of the emails, and I had like a 3 to 11 shift. So when I got off of work, I would come home and I would have to pack all the orders from, that I collected. I have to do the rest of the emails, which took hours. I usually didn't get to bed till like probably 5 a.m. Then I had to get up at like 11 so I could go collect money, all the money from the emails from that night, go to the gym, and then go back to work. And that was my day, and it was full. So I woke up one morning and I don't know, I usually had probably like 30 to 50 emails by then, and then I would get a few hundred throughout the day, but in the morning there's usually maybe 40 or 50. This is like 11 o'clock. And this one morning I woke up and I had like 200 emails already, and this thing was just spiraling out of control. I was absolutely overwhelmed. I wasn't the man who's prone to panic attacks, but if I ever had a panic attack, it was right now. And I remember just putting my hand in my head and saying, I can't do this. Like, this got too big. This is too much. I'm gonna get caught. I can't do this. It got out of control. This is too much. I'm gonna get in trouble. I have to stop this. So my plan was I was gonna fill all the orders that people had paid, because I don't want everybody to lose their money. So I'll fill all the orders of people who already paid, but I'm going to tell everybody else that they can't order, that I'm done. They can't order, that I'm done. And I'm just going to stop. That's it. I can't do anymore. So I'm sitting there and I start to feel a little better because I have a plan. And then I start thinking, it starts hitting me. Like, so, to go back, another one of the problems is that a lot of things that scared me is that after I filled all these orders and collected this money, I was going to have about $100,000 cash at my house. And I never dreamed in my entire life I would hold that much money. Not to mention there's more in my basement, and money just piling in every day. And as stupid as this sounds, it became scary. This was too much. I was going to get in trouble. I have too much money. I just got terrified. So I have this plan. I'm going to quit. And then I started thinking, like, as good as the money is, and a lot of people think that, people do this because of greed. Like, you want the money and you just keep going, even though things are spiraling out of control and it's getting too crazy, it's getting too big. Like, you're right, this is getting a little too big. You're putting yourself in danger of getting caught, and it's just greed that's putting you on. And it's a very facile explanation. It's not an accurate depiction of what actually happens to drive you on. The motivation and driving force for somebody to move on who's in a situation like this is dopamine. And dopamine is the neurotransmitter that conveys motivational salience and ambition. These are all and passion. These are words for dopamine rush. And you get dopamine from anticipation of helping people, or of being able to obtain some reward. If you can see a reward in the future, dopamine is produced in order to narrow your focus and motivate you and then make you ambitious to go get that reward, right? So in this case, the reward isn't just money. That's facile just to call it greed and wrap it up in one simple explanation and throw it out. It's much more complicated than that. So a large part of the reward is, so every single day I would receive emails, and I did throughout the entire process of this. I would receive emails from people that they thanking me. They said, thank you. You've made me a better husband to my wife, a better father to my children, a better just a better man. I'm more confident. I can finally fuck my wife. I have the ambition and the drive to go out and do more, so I can actually make more money and take care of my family. And thank you. And you make this process so efficient, so easy, and so cheap that you allow me to do that. And thank you. And I got that every single day, multiple times a day. And that drives, knowing that this many people are counting on me drives that dopamine rush. When you help somebody, you are rewarded with dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, endorphins, and so when I'm rewarded with these, thinking about continuing to help people, it releases dopamine and makes me want to go get it. So I started thinking about letting all these people down, and this is bigger than me, just me right now, because I'm helping thousands of people. At this point, I probably had 1,000, if not more, clients, and I'm letting all of them down, and this is bigger than me. It's not about me anymore. It's about providing this efficient process to help these people, and I'm going to let them all down. That drove a determination in me. It narrowed my focus and I said, fuck that. I can do this. So I had to scale really quickly because I couldn't do this by myself anymore. So I put my head down and I can do this. I just started hiring people. So I had to hire out somebody to focus on one aspect of the business. So I hired a shipper, somebody who could just take the shipping off my hands. I hired, in the future, in the short-term future, I would hire a chemist. And I would hire, I had like an army of people collecting money because it took a lot of time to go collect all the money. So I had this like small army of people that collect money. And so this is kind of how my day would go now, right? As I would answer the emails. I took care of the customer side, and I started pulling all the strings to make the rest of the stuff happen. So after I developed this process, I didn't even touch any product. The products would go right to the shipper. I would take the orders, and I never saw a product. It was all, the orders came in, I collected the money, distributed the money where it needed to go, and I just pulled the strings and made everything work. But I dealt with the people because I'm the best at, nobody could run this company like the founder, and nobody could deal with customers the way I can. So after I developed this, and the idea was to compartmentalize the system, right? So I had this grander vision of being able to compartmentalize this so everybody does their individual jobs, but nobody knows each other, right? So in case in the future if something happens and one aspect of the business gets taken down, nobody knows each other, so they couldn't even tell each other if they want. And that was kind of the concept I started to try to build. In the beginning, everybody knew each other, but I in the future, I actually took care of that and I started hiring out the positions in different states. I got to where at one point I had 5 shippers, 5 chemists, and all throughout the United States, all in different states, and each person had their job and they didn't know anybody else. And I started to develop that here. Okay, so now I'm at the point where I start to implement some aspects of this business that really took it to, heights that almost made this exponentially even more lucrative. And I started to, these things made sense to me, and I started to, I just started making these moves that really worked. It made sense to me. Like when I finally went to prison, I was able to start reading voraciously, and I read only books that would help me for my future. So I read books on biographies of entrepreneurs, some of the greatest entrepreneurs of our time. I read just any books about business. I read MBA textbooks, just anything that would help. And I started to learn that I was actually implementing some pretty advanced business tactics, and I didn't really realize it at the time. I didn't have a name to put to it, or I didn't really realize what I do, and it just kind of made sense that I needed to do some of these things. So the first one aspect of this was there's a concept of Nassim Taleb wrote a book called Anti-Fragile. And what that meant was that when you set up a system that's fragile, it's all dependent on one thing. And you're dependent on this one thing and something happens to this one thing, well, then you're crushed, and whatever you're doing, whatever system you have is over. So you have to build what are you saying is you have to build a robust system. You have to build yourself optionality. You have to have redundancies in order to give yourself outs in case, what he would call them black swan events would occur. You have redundancies and optionality to get around, these black swan events. Something that could, be very bad or even possibly very good. Or you have to put yourself in a position to have positive black swans, which is something that just yields really good results. So one of the ways to do this, and then anti-fragile means that you actually build a system that actually gets better with stress. So now you have a situation where you have a fragile situation, which if one thing goes wrong, then your whole system is gone, your whole business is gone. But if you build a robust enough system in an anti-fragile way, if something bad happens, it actually turns into something positive. And this is what I did, and I didn't really realize it was going to work out. It made sense to me what to do, but the way it turned out was sort of serendipitous. But it worked out exactly how he explained this anti-fragile. I became the opposite of fragile. When something went wrong, I got stronger. And I did this a few times, and I'll explain exactly how this happened now. So I had this Chinese source that was probably one of the better sources in the world at the time, and I had these rock bottom prices, but this guy was getting a little flaky. He would disappear for like a month at a time sometimes. And that was pretty scary because my whole business was modeled on this guy getting me products. And if I couldn't get those products, then I had no business. So I realized that I needed optionality, or I needed a contingency in case this guy disappears, which he had done here and there. So I started looking at other brands to buy, right? And I found people were sourcing other brand names. I had one of the bigger brand names, but the prices were too high. There was no way that. One of my things was that I had one of the lowest costs. I had quality products for the lowest price, and I would have to raise my prices. That would destroy my whole client base. The reason why people came to me, so I just couldn't do that. So at this time, I think it's important to understand that we understood, or I understood, that we were doing this national business, but I knew that was all anonymous, and the reason we were, one of the main reasons we would get caught is because some local cop wanted to be a cowboy, and if local people talked, the cops could hear, and a local cop could want to be a cowboy and bust us. And that was, I think, where we were most susceptible. So I made sure, I went over, reiterated to everybody that if you talk, you're going to get us caught. And everybody did a good job of being quiet. So nobody knew what we were doing. And we were bringing in a significant amount of money into this small city. So it was difficult to hide the fact that all these guys had, all my employees and myself had quite a bit of money. And we were able to keep it pretty quiet. So nobody really knew what we were doing except for us. That's relevant because so the rest of the steroid dealers in the local city, like, we all knew each other. We're all friends. And if we were doing something big, one of these guys should have found out, but they didn't because we did a good job of keeping our mouth shut. So I knew that one of these steroid dealers had been making his own products for a while. And people had told me about, hey, have you ever tried Caleb's stuff? But it was like, so he made these vials, and it didn't have labels on them, and But I remember people telling me it was cheap, and everybody who did it, it was really good. It was really potent, really good, worked really well. Everybody was happy with it, and the price was below what I could do. And I started doing some research. I didn't really understand making your own products, so I started doing some research, and I learned then I started to learn how cheap it was to make it yourself. It's really cheap. So, at the time you couldn't find out. Now you could actually probably just Google how to make this stuff, but at the time there was no information on it. But he had figured it out. So I was a biochemist, but I still didn't know how to do it. I didn't have a recipe. I didn't know. You couldn't find any information about it. He had figured it out. So my plan was that again, he made this stuff. It had no label. As I said before, the ethos of the time was that the only thing that prevented him from being able to outclass or out monopolize the whole area was that most people didn't trust anything that wasn't a name brand, as I had stated. That wasn't a name brand, and he had this stuff with no label, and nobody wanted to trust that. But the few people who did take it said it was phenomenal and it was really cheap, and so a lot of people bought from him. But I was stable because it wasn't name brand. He wasn't able to really take off. So I started to realize that, okay, what we have to do is professionalize that operation. And, I remember I always had in the back of my head, I was mad that he was able to do something that could undercut me. And, it may only be a matter of time before that, takes my local game down at least. And I had to figure out how to deal with that or what to do about that. And I couldn't, his product cost was so much less than mine that I couldn't undercut him. And so, it started to slowly become clear that the answer is not to fight him and try to, for instance, when another startup company comes and offers something that competes with anything with Microsoft, what does Microsoft do? Well, they just buy them out and actually, partner with the company and to make the company part of their own network, right? So I started to think about, well, this is what the big guys do. They make the competitor one of their own. And that seemed like the route to go. So I set up, we hung out with him the weekend before. So I knew, okay, I know where he goes. I had one of my friends call him and say that, hey, we had fun last week, let's go do this again next week. So we're gonna go meet him out at a bar. And I set up this whole speech. I had this whole thing kind of prepared, and I went and grabbed a week's worth of money that I collected all of my Western Union wrappers that I had people drop me off all the money. I kept them in the Western Union wrappers because I wanted to show them how much money we made. So I put that as a prop in my car. I had like $30,000, and I have that in my car. It was the same amount of money as Gene had. I didn't even think about that. So I go to the bar. I'm nervous because if this doesn't work, I don't have another plan. This has to work, or I don't know what I'm going to do. This source is getting flaky. I can't do this. This is the thing that I know will work the best if I can make this partnership. And if it doesn't work, I don't know where everything's going to go. So I have to land this, and I'm nervous. So I tell him, hey, sometime by the night, I want to talk to you. So, but it's too loud in here. We have to go out to my car. That's where I had the money. So he's like, okay, yeah, let's go right now. Oh, I wanted some more time to go over this in my head, but I can't say, hey, never mind. No, okay. Kind of slam my drink, give myself some courage, and go out to my car. I still remember, I just started to just unleash exactly what happened. I know this is going to sound weird, but hear me out, listen to me. Because again, he didn't know what was happening to us or exactly the behemoth that was being created right in his backyard. And this was his realm too. So when I started to explain what was happening, I showed him the money. I said, I just picked this up this week. Look what's happening. This is something big. I think, you know, if we partner, let's do this together. Let's make a brand. I want to make this brand. That's the term I use. I want to make this brand a household name. We're going to be a household name. With your help, here's the kind of money you can make. I set it up so he would make these vials. I would pay him $10 a vial. He could make like 300 a day probably. So, you know, he could make $3,000 a day. There's no other opportunities. He's already, you know, selling stuff, so he wasn't adverse to that. There's really no reason to say no, but I was just still nervous. I remember, like, I still remember his mouth just dropped open. He couldn't believe what he was hearing, and he didn't say a word. Nothing could come out of his mouth. So finally, when I ended, what do you say? Do you want to partner and make something that the world recognizes? That's exactly what I said. And he just goes, yeah. Okay, so I'll buy everything. I'm going to get you set up. He had the powder source. He had the you know, good powder sources already picked out from because he was doing it. So I just gave him like $15,000 and I said, okay, let's get started. Buy the powders, buy everything you need, get this going, and you know, get me some vials as soon as you can. So sure enough, like it was only like a week later, he started producing these vials, and we had these little 20 milliliter vials. I created a label. I didn't do it. I had somebody else create a label for it, and we called it Matrix Labs. And if you look up Matrix Labs today, it will still, you can still see all the positive reviews for it, and you know, it was a pretty big brand. So the economics of this were, so I was this British Dragon. I was buying for. I had 25 milliliter vials that I was buying for $50. I was selling them for $125. So my profit margin was 250%. With the stuff I was making, that didn't include shipping costs, right? So it was actually, after shipping, it was a little worse, but not much. So when I broke down the 20 milliliter vials, the cost of the vial, including shipping, including paying the chemist, including paying everybody, everything that had to do with making it was $20 for a 20 milliliter vial. So now, so my product cost was halved, and I was charged $100 for this, and my profit margin increased to 400%. So the economics of it just, you know, absolutely made sense. So when I started putting this, I had my list of British Dragon products, and I introduced the Matrix products. Again, the zeitgeist at the time, nobody wanted to deal with a brand they didn't recognize, or a seller that they didn't recognize. So I thought it was going to take a long time for people, you know, people would very sporadically move from the British Dragon to the Matrix products, but the Matrix products were stronger and cheaper. They were more potent and cheaper. They were better quality, cheaper. But I didn't think that transition was going to happen. So it turned out, though, that the brand was me. I had instilled the trust. Black market buyers are some of the, as I said, they can be some of the most distrustful, hateful people filled with animus, derogatory people out there. But once you earn their trust, they can also be some of the most loyal. So whatever I had, I was the brand. So whatever I put in front of them, they would buy. And I didn't realize it at the time. But so this transition from my British Dragon to the Matrix was seamless, and everybody immediately, almost immediately, just about everybody moved over to the Matrix and started using it. And then the quality, we made it a little strong on purpose so that it was really potent, and the quality, then everybody started using it right away, and everybody started posting on all the forums how great and how Matrix is fire, and this stuff is more potent than anything I've ever done. I got that all the time, posted all over the forums, not only this forum, but every forum throughout the steroid world was writing about Matrix. I even recently had a guy, when I was explaining all of this, I recently had a guy from Australia who said, I'm from Australia and I heard of Matrix back in the day. So even people in other countries heard about this stuff, just posted all over these forums. So the fact that our matrix was fire drove more people. So now we just keep expanding. And sure enough, if, I mean, I'm talking like a month later, if that Chinese source didn't just disappear, and he was gone, he just disappeared out of nowhere, just couldn't get a hold of him and he was done. But it turns out it didn't matter, because now I had something that was more potent. Economically, I was making more money off of it. Profit margins were higher. People liked it better. And it turned out it didn't even matter. And so now in trying to create a robust system and trying to avoid, this fragility that I had by only having this one source, BD source, this brings it around, wraps it around to what was anti-fragile about this is I created something stronger. Now the thing I created to avoid the fragility, the stress came to my system, which knocked out this source of income, but everybody went to this that made me, the matrix that made me stronger. It was more lucrative. Plus because it was more potent, it drove in more people. So we got stronger from having the adversity from the stress of losing the British Dragon source. We got even stronger. So that's anti-fragile, right? I didn't really know that. It made sense to me. I had to do that, but I didn't. Now I can put an advanced business concept to it, but that's what we did. And again, the money is just coming in more and more. So in order to absolutely ensure quality, again, there was a slight bit amount of fragility just because we only had one powder source. So I wanted to change that again, building a more robust system. So when you get that as big as we were, the Chinese powder sources come to you and they're trying to sell you. I was doing like $200,000 $200,000 probably every year or so. Maybe it was a little more than that. $300,000 every year with this powder source. So other powder sources just come to me. So, and I must have got like 50 to 70 Chinese powder sources trying to sell me. So I had learned that you just listen to everybody. Okay, what do you got? What do you have to offer? So I took samples from all of them. Now at this time, I had all these samples from 50 different sources. And at this time you couldn't test a vial of, like I couldn't send it away to a lab and test something for potency, like what we had for potency. Nowadays you can do that, but at this time you couldn't do that. It wasn't an option. So what we had to do to make sure everything was potent, I had all these sources, but I'm not going to just trust them. I have a brand to protect. So what I did is I crowdsourced my own client base. I used them to help me, and I told them, I want you to help me test products so I can make sure that we have the best quality products. So I would give a lot of my guys a discount for cleaning out their receptors. I would send them some of this stuff, like we'd make it and test it on ourselves first, and then everything was fine. So we'd send clients these tests because there's too many for us to do this. So we'd send the clients and tell them to clean out their receptors and do this much, this known amount every week or whatever, or every few days or whatever it was. And we knew how much that amount should raise your blood levels to be quality, right? So, and then we would pay them to go get a blood test after a certain amount of time. Your blood levels should be this if it's quality. And we were able to do this on the order of, I had an army of my own clients, working to help me do quality control. Nobody else was doing this. In the entire world, nobody was doing this. So, so now I had all these 50 sources and I had the qualities that I could match, and I broke it down to the top 3 of them that were most consistently the highest potency, best quality. And now we're talking about that I have not only, because of the system we put in place, I have not only the best, I have, absolutely the best quality of any other steroids in the entire world, not just the United States, but I have the most potent and highest quality steroids in the world because of all this quality control testing we did. So this again drove more and more, because now Now the quality is even better. Now people are really posting, and it's all over everywhere that this matrix is fire. And people started coming to us and was like, I've read so much about this matrix, I have to try it. At this point, I'm running into a major problem. I'm making too much money. It's a stupid fucking problem to have, but it is a problem. I have like an army of people who are collecting Western Unions. At this point, I had even gotten what's called these green dot cards, or there's similar cards from different companies. Essentially what green dot cards are is you can, they're reloadable credit cards, and you can buy these reload packs, right? These reload packs have codes on them, and you can buy them. You could be in California, buy this reload pack, and you scratch off this thing, and you pay for it, however much money you want to put on it, you pay for it at the counter of the CVS or whatever, and you scratch off, you get this code, and you can use this code to reload this. So somebody could just give me the code. I have a reloadable credit card. I go onto the website, put this code in it, and put in the number of the card I want it to load, and boom, it loads that credit card. It's an anonymous way to collect money. So this was another way we were collecting money. It was one of the only ways we were able to collect as much money as we were to this point. However, the business has grown to such an extent that it's still too much. I've personally got like 30 of these cards from, I used to just pay people $100 to just give me a card. All they had to do is go on the website, fill this out, and it shows up to their door, then they just give me the card. And I also had an army of people who had like 5 or 6 of these cards themselves, and I would load their cards and pay them 6% to just come bring me the money. But you can only load so much money on these cards, and you can only take so much out of the bank. But what you could do is you could spend almost unlimited amount on credit, because theoretically that's traceable. However, if you're just spending a few $100s here and there, it's not that traceable or paid attention to. So, but I had like 30 of these cards, and I had thousands of dollars on each one, up to $5,000 to $10,000 on each one, but I could only load so much on them, or they would think they would actually shut these cards down. Or if you pulled too much money out of the cash out of the ATM, they would think there was something fraudulent going on. They would shut them down, and it cost us a lot of pain and lost some money trying to figure out, because they don't tell you exactly how much you can load on. You have to figure that out yourself. This just became a pain, but we eventually developed a system to. We knew exactly how much we could load and take out of these cards, I was paying for everything. I was almost finding ways to spend money to get money off these cards so I could make room for more. I had to use these cards to pay for everything, and so in the Western Unions, but it was still too much money. I couldn't fit it all in these cards. It was a very serious problem, because we were going to have to slow down business because there's too much money coming in. We couldn't collect it all. So it became a major problem. So whenever I have a problem like this, I like to I would go to the gym, sit on this problem, and I could always figure it out at the gym. What tends to happen is when you think really hard, when you're researching or studying or thinking really hard, your brain tends to get foggy or fuzzy, and it's what it is your brain's creating all these neurotransmitters to have these synapse firings, and the neurotransmitters get a little too plentiful. You kind of start having confusing signals, and that's what kind of causes the brain fog. Well, using motor function actually also uses these neurotransmitters, and you're able to clear your head through intense exercise, and exercise produces other endorphins that help, and your head gets cleared, and you can usually think better when you're working out. So I would always be able to solve my problems at the gym. I went to the gym, get like 3/4 of the way through my workout, and boom, like a moment of clarity, it just hit me how to do this. So I hurry up, finished my workout, I got home, I started implementing this plan. So what was happening is I was taking all this money from the customers, from each customer, and it was coming to me, and then I was doling it out to where it needed to go. And that was the problem. The money coming to me, I couldn't collect enough of it. And a lot of it had to go out to other places, the suppliers, my employees. Those are the two major things, my employees and suppliers. So I thought, well, it's coming to me going out. Why don't I just take myself out as the middleman and funnel the money exactly to where it needs to go, the end result. So a lot of that was we had powder suppliers, and at this time the Chinese supplier was still in play. So I had the Chinese British Dragon supplier and our powder suppliers. So I went and I asked them, and I almost, like at a point I had to like actually demand this, but they were actually fine with it. I said, can I, because these Chinese, I always paid them in Western Union, and they always had different names. There was an endless supply of Chinese names, people ready to pick up money, and especially for my Chinese supplier, the British Dragon, most of the people around the world that he was serving only bought a few $100s worth of things, so I knew that a few $100 payments would be fine for him. So I asked, can I send my client payments directly to him, and I'd build up an account, and just whenever I needed to order, I'd order and it would come out of the account I was building. He said right away, he said, sure, yeah, every client sent it. Here's a bunch of Western Union names. Give them out to all your clients. And the same thing happened to the powder suppliers. No, they didn't have a problem with this at all. So now, and then also I made all my employees get Western Union, or I mean, these green dot cards or whatever the companies were like. So now I could have my clients pay directly to my employees. And so now what I did is I funneled all the money from my clients directly to where it needed to go, and all the money that I needed, that I collected myself on my cards, was all profit of my personal profit. So that was, I mean, I can't overstate how important that was, because it, like, we were almost going to have to shut down for a little bit to deal with the money issue, and that completely solved it. As simple as that may seem, it wasn't obvious at first, but coming up with that just absolutely took a ton of stress off the business. So now now we're allowed to just keep growing, right? Like for a while we're like, we can't grow. I was going to have to raise the minimum price to drop down my client base, or the minimum order. So I was drop down my client base, and that was just going to affect revenue. And people get mad about that, so it kind of affects the brand. Okay, so now, again, that this allows us to just keep expanding exponentially. Like, we're going into, making $50,000 to $100,000 a year, not a year, a week. Millions of dollars a year at this point, and it just keeps growing. So now we'll go to the first major crisis. Okay, so so I got to the point where I wanted to, be able. I had all this money coming in, and I wasn't able to have any time to spend it. I was working 12-hour days. I think by this point I probably quit the emergency room. Part of me was trying to hold on to that to remain some sort of legitimacy, but I couldn't work and do all the work I had to do for this business, and I just quit the emergency room. Well, I actually didn't quit. I just kept giving all my shifts away because people wanted extra shifts, and I just kept giving them all away until they stopped putting me on the schedule. So I ended up teaching one of my shippers. So to tell this story, it's important to know the shipper and the psyche behind all that. So I had the first original shipper I had became an Adderall addict, and he couldn't even think. He couldn't think straight. So his job was I would take in all the orders. People would come in, order, hey, I want this. I would send them some payment information, ask them how they wanted to pay, send them the payment information. They would come back to me with the payment. I would collect the payment and put the shipping order on an email, and I would line all the orders up. There'd usually be, I don't know, in the beginning it was like 10 a day, then 20, 30, 40, 50 a day. And I would line them all up on this email, and then send At like about 11, 12 o'clock at night, I would send the email, and then the shipper had till the next day, post office close. He had to get the orders there, the packed orders there before close. That way people would get their products in 2 or 3 days. So this guy was so strung out on Adderall, he couldn't even think straight. He freaking Adderalled himself retarded. And so his job was, here's all the list of, here's the shipping address and what he needs to put in the box, and all the stuff that he needs to put in the box is here, and he just has to pick the correct stuff out and put them in this box, put the address on it, and take it to the post office. And this became an impossible feat to get correct. So he started just sending the wrong orders. All the stuff wouldn't be there. That happened a lot. Sometimes he'd send the same order twice. It was freaking nuts. He was just out of control. So I had to get a new shipper. So now I can't take in resumes and go to Indeed.com and try to get the best employees. I have a minimal pool of available people that I have to work with. So I had this one guy that I knew that was actually begging me for some work. This guy was like, him and I became friends. We actually became friends. I did a brief stint in it was actually a long-term 6-month stint in a rehab, and I met him there, and we figured out we were both from the same area. You know, we both were in the drug game, and he felt like we were equals, and we became friends kind of as equals, although he felt he was more alpha male than I was. So he, the dynamic of the relationship and whatever, I was just like, and I could, you could tell he was the type of guy who liked to control stuff. So that's the dynamic we met at. That's the dynamic we were friends. So when he was asking me for work, because he's starting to realize that I have something going on here, and the dynamic changed because now I'm way up here. I'm successful. I have a ton of responsibility. Thousands of people are depending on me to do this, and I have a lot of responsibility. And now I'm an alpha male, and I dictate to everybody what needs to happen, and there's no questioning that because I built this empire, and I know how to run it, which was true. So he comes into the business, and at first he does a better job. There's no question about that. He was able to put the correct shit in the box and send it, and he got it out on time. This other guy sometimes took days to send it, and he got yelled at a lot. And he eventually got fired. So this guy, like, over time, the job is very demanding. He would get kind of stressed out, but so another thing I want to make clear is that what money can do to a social structure. So a lot of people says, well, money changes people. Well, and that's true. It does. When you're making money in a situation like I was, money is an arbitrary construct, right? The numbers in your bank account or the cash is an arbitrary construct. It's just man-made. Like, what does it mean? Well, it's actually worthless, but it represents our value to society, right? So when somebody has a lot of money, people see that as your value to society, and money is a panacea for all your troubles. It's an easy fix to all problems, right? That's what a panacea is. Easy, something that can fix everything. So, and when people see that, you get a lot of respect and admiration, and it can drive mania. Mania is when your dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, and endorphins are too high. People who are manic depressive or manic, they're too high 1 minute, then depressed, you're too low. So when you're manic, you think you're kind of megalomaniacal, you think you're almost godlike, and nobody should challenge you, nobody should question you. So this is the state of mania, and money can do that because everybody is respecting and admiring you, especially when you're running a large business and a lot of people depend on you. They become sycophantish and servile, and all that respect builds up that dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, endorphin response, and you can become manic, but which certainly happened to me at some point, but I was able to pretty quickly rein it in and understand to keep that in check. I say that because, so that's how people can change with money, right? That is one aspect. The other thing that changes with money, which is much less understood, is the people around you, around the money, will also change. And that is because, like this shipper and I, we were friends at this level. We were kind of equal social, or maybe he thought he was a little higher than me. When I rose up here, the dynamic that made ourselves friends, that made him like me, that created that connection between us, changed. And that changes the person who is left behind as well. It makes them angry at the new situation, and they don't really realize that they're jealous, and jealousy runs rampant. And I lost a lot of friends through jealousy. People started robbing me, my own friends. This jealousy runs rampant, and the people change too. So I want to iterate that it's not that money changes people. The people who are left behind also change drastically. So this dynamic shift, this guy, because he became a good shipper and all he did was do his job correctly instead of terribly, he started feeling that he was entitled to half of my business, which was ludicrous. But in his mind, his sense of entitlement told him that this isn't how drug empires work. The people involved, they all own it together. And I started this whole thing, this thing. He came into this thing after this was a multi-million-dollar company. There's no way. The dynamic changed. He started to get angry, and you know what I had done. So while all this is happening, I kind of realized there's something going on, but I don't think it will spiral that far out of control. I had taught him, so I could go on vacation once in a while. I taught him how to answer all the emails and to take care of the business while I was gone. Now, when I would come back, there would be some fires, but the business was able to run suitably, and I would come back, put out the fires, and everything would be fine. So I was able to go on vacation every like 6 weeks or so, and that was a welcome reprieve. So this one time I went to Cancun. I went to spring break because I had never been to spring break before, and I finally could afford it, and I wanted to go enjoy it. So we went and we researched, and we went to the biggest party, college party hotel, stayed right there, and it was crazy. All these college kids going nuts around us, and it was pretty fun. And we went, VIP tables at all the bars. It was a lot more fun because you could enjoy it with a lot of money this time. And I took one of my friends that was actually in college. He was like 26. I was 32, and he was in medical school. I knew him but we had a blast. So anyways, and another friend came too, actually. So we got really drunk one night, and we during that night we decided to, why end the party now? After this 8 days we're going to spend in Cancun, let's get tickets to Miami. So after our Cancun vacation, we rerouted our tickets. Instead of going home to Miami, we paid for that, and we were so drunk that when we woke up the next day, nobody remembered doing that, and we just all of a sudden saw these on our phone, these notices that our planes were changed, or plane, and we're like, what happened? Who changed our flights to? Well, we had decided to do that, and we didn't remember. So it was like, I guess we're going to Miami. So we got into Miami. I flew into Miami, and they had, because we were coming from out of the country, they had the border security, and they pick random people out, or not even random, suspicious-looking people out to search all their stuff, right? So I'm going, and I had just partied like crazy in Cancun every day, drinking way too much, and probably other stuff too. I don't even remember. But I come in, and I'm not in great shape, and I'm sweating, and I'm kind of shaking because I had drank so much, probably done some substances, and so they picked me right out. You're shaking and you're blanch white. Come over here. They thought I was scared because I was running drugs into the country, which was not true. I wasn't stupid, and I made sure I didn't have anything on me. I actually went through all my stuff with the intent of making sure there was nothing wrong in my luggage. So I knew I was good, so I kind of had fun with it. The guy told me, "Why are you sweating and why are you shaking?" And I said, "Well, because I drank enough to kill an elephant every single day I was there." And I'm sweating and shaking because of that. And he said, well, you look like you're about to fall over. I said, I might, but that's okay. I'll get back up. I've done this before. And so they ended up like checking all my stuff. Of course, they didn't find anything, and they didn't want to let me go just because they were sure they had me, just because of the way I looked. And well, too bad. You got to let me go. I don't have anything. We get into Miami. And I actually have an appointment. One of my friends from Miami, I told him I was coming into town, and he said that he wanted me to meet his boss. His boss was interested in me investing in a new company he was starting. His boss was a multimillionaire. And so in this business, I checked out some, like a prospectus of this business, and it looked good. And I was ready to invest $100,000 into this business. And I had that meeting that day, and I think like what I did is I ran out of money because I spent so much of it. So I asked him to load my cards that I had on me with more money. I said, start loading my cards. And then, he didn't get back to me right away. So I started going into the emails and pulling out cards out of the, pulling out payments out of the emails that came into the work email. And I started loading my own cards. And this actually kind of made him mad because of what he was planning, which I didn't know. So as soon as I told him I took some more money, but load me up some more money, all of a sudden I got this email, or this text, that said I was going to try to wait till you got back for this, but here we go. I went to drop stuff off the other day, and somebody was taking pictures of me. The cops are after us. They're onto us. I'm leaving. Maybe I'll talk to you sometime. I'm getting out of the state. So now, I panic. My heart drops. The business is over. They're onto us. I have this meeting. I got to cancel with this multimillionaire and immediately fly home. I get home. I can't. They're watching us, so I'm scared to get on the emails. I start to learn that nobody had, from the beginning, he didn't even answer an email from when I left right away. So it started to become clear that this had almost been planned. And I started investigating because things didn't start to make sense. But now we're talking about, it's been a month and I haven't talked to anybody because I'm scared to sign on. I think that maybe they're watching the work email. People have gone without orders for like 2 weeks. It's really bad for business. Like now people are starting to scream, this looks like a scam. Terrible. I thought the business is over. This is done. It's it. I'm incredibly depressed. But something's looking strange, and I'm really looking into this. And I start to get motivated to figure this out. And I start to realize, I start to uncover thing by little details that this guy had been planning this the whole time. Nobody was watching. He just stole about $50,000 or $60,000 from me, took off because of his sense of entitlement. And one of the chemists left at the same time too, so I thought they were in cahoots, and they left. And it kind of turns out that although it was strange, I don't know exactly what happened to this day. But I ended up hiring the chemist back later. But this guy took off. He stole the money, took off because of his sense of entitlement. And no cops were actually watching, and this was a robbery. So I got back to everybody. I hired the other Adderall shipper back. We got back to everybody. I apologized sincerely. I got everybody their products. Plus, I gave them some extra stuff. I got everybody. I got rolling again. Everybody wasn't super happy, but in the end, it actually worked out to my favor because of the way I got back to everybody. It became like, well, look at, and I was transparent with everybody. I told them what happened. My shipper robbed me. He left. He took everything. I didn't realize this was happening. And everybody saw it as, look at this guy. He had this kind of adversity. He still got back to everybody instead of just stopping and just, quitting while he's already way ahead. He got back to everybody and paid back people back more. And it actually worked out in my favor. Like people actually embraced it more, and I became a little bit more well-branded and trusted because even if something really bad happens, I'm still going to pull through. Again, it worked out in my favor, anti-fragile. So that was the the second major crisis. I had helped, so after this, Adderall shipper was working again. He was still doing his Adderall things and couldn't get anything right, and I was screaming at him every day, and he was terrible. So I had to get another shipper. So I had this personal assistant that I didn't tell what I did, but some of my stuff, like it was inevitable, she just kind of started to slowly piece it together, what I was doing and how I had so much money. And she eventually asked to be a part of the illegal side because she wanted to make the kind of money that she found that people were making. So I eventually gave her a chance. I said, okay. She actually, I got her going. She actually did a great job. And so one day, so at this is the time that when I moved to New York, right, or the greater New York City. I moved to Jersey, right on the Hudson. Had the penthouse overlooking Manhattan, gorgeous, floor to ceiling windows, gorgeous. I get there, spend one night there. I wake up the first day there, and she calls and says, the post office just called me. One of the packages leaked. They're opening it up to make sure that there's nothing hazardous. Now, what I had is, remember my compartmentalized operation, I had chemists making my stuff. I had one in Georgia who shipped it to New York, but we vacuum sealed everything and bubble wrapped the heck out of it. And there's no way that should have broken unless somebody, they must have spiked it on the ground or something. So we would send these boxes of 100 vials at a time, and he probably sent 3 of them, so we had like 300 vials, probably worth about $30,000, and one of them broke and leaked through, and they opened this up, and they found the other packages. They found like $30,000 worth of steroids, and of course, it was going right to her house, and that was one of the mistakes I made. In the future, I learned that I had to have a clean shipping house, right? So you have a receiving house which then gets taken to the shipper, so if something like that happens again, the DEA can go there and it will just be clean and there'll be nothing. But they went to the shipper's house. Now I couldn't get there because I lived near New York now, and she was in upstate and there's no way I could get there. So I sent somebody to her house to help her clean out everything. They almost got everything out, but the DEA got there just in time to catch them with a little bit of shipping materials and some raw powders. One of the chemists was making stuff there too, so it was just, but it wasn't much. So they got low-level felonies. They would have been able to get what's called a conditional discharge, and if they had 6 months of good behavior, it would have been totally off their record, no jail time, no nothing. However, the guy knew this. There was the girl and the guy knew this, and he just didn't say anything. I bought him a lawyer. Everything was fine, but she, from being my personal assistant, knew a little too much information, and they scared her through the interrogation, and they just terrified her with all this probably false information that she would never have spent a day in jail. And she blew in the whole operation. So now at this point, they know my name. I had a lawyer on retainer. I called him. He went to find out what was going on. But it was still a local state thing. It wasn't, so I wasn't in New York. The guy from Georgia wasn't in New York. They had no jurisdiction to go get him. They didn't have jurisdiction to go get me. They just had the two people who were arrested. Now, they didn't even spend a night in jail. They were out, and they just had these, tickets for the lowest level felony you could get. I bought his lawyer, so we were talking about, kind of talking to the lawyer about what was going on, and the lawyer gave us the information. Well, they don't have a lot of information. They have the testimony of one person, which you cannot arrest somebody on. And they don't have a lot of other information. They don't have jurisdiction to go anywhere. They couldn't get into our emails. It's out of the country. They couldn't get anything. So although they originally were telling me that they wanted to talk to me and they thought they just didn't have anything. So it just kind of like, that was it. They had the two people. They gave them the tickets, and it was going to end there. And the feds were not going to pick this case up. That's what the lawyer, the guy's lawyer said. The guy's lawyer said. So eventually, after this is another instance where we went months without serving anybody, and I didn't want to get on the emails. I was scared that they were somehow watching them, and we went months again without serving anybody, and we just disappeared, and that doesn't look good. It's bad for the brand, bad for the name. But after a few months, the guys just said, "This is over. Let's keep going." Like, all the employees came to me and said, "Let's keep going. We'll just stay out of New York. This was a New York thing. It died there. Stay out of New York. Let's go." Okay, I know a lot of people at this point said, "Oh, this is greed. You got greedy." Again, it wasn't about greed. It's about, you drive so much passion for this thing that you created, for your baby, for your empire that you created. And there's passion for that. It's not even about anything except seeing this thing that you created, this freaking wonderful living entity, survive. It wasn't about greed. So we went again, and here we go, same thing. Apologize to people. Hey, just explain to them. I don't think I could have been as transparent this time, because it would have been bad if I told people a portion of our business got busted. But I just said there was problems, and we took care of them. And again, this is almost business ending. However, we were able to overcome, and the people who didn't get their orders were sent more stuff, and everything went back to normal again. I was very good with people. I'm very good at explaining people, and everything went back to normal and got even stronger. So as it would turn out, like, this is the event. So at this time, about this time, they're creating a special task force is being created to deal with online steroids. And this is called Operation Cyberjuice. And without us knowing, and it took months and months to happen, probably 6 months later, but but this special task force had been created and did pick this case up. And we didn't know that. However, we went 2 more years before anything happened, just growing and growing and doing more. At this time I was able, shortly after we were doing well again, still producing the same quality stuff, everything's going, I was able to buy a Jaguar. I leased it. I leased a brand new $130,000 Jaguar F-Type. This is when I got it, the penthouse, everything was going great. Extravagant vacations, I went all over the country. And I went to different places in the world, London, Ireland, Cancun we already went to. I used to love Vegas and Miami. Lots of trips to see floor seats at NBA games, some of the favorite players, favorite teams. We would go, so one time I took this bachelor party to Vegas, just, because, this was one of my friends. I wanted to show everybody a night they remember, so I took them all to Vegas. This was probably cost me about a $70,000 weekend. No gambling. I bought the top, I bought about a $20,000 owner's table at Hakkasan when Tiesto's opening night. The owner's table, about $20,000. I just freaking had a blast. It was such a good time. Just stuff like this. Showing friends good times. Just if anybody needed, anybody was having problems, somebody needed their rent paid, so there's problems, I would always take care of it, helping people. Like I said, money just makes it easy to help people. And at this point, I had started to rein in my mania, and it was more about creating value and helping people. And taking people who didn't have a lot of money, taking them to nice dinners, and you know, just showing everybody a good time. And I mean, the money was just coming in so fast, like it couldn't. I also started real estate. I had 4 houses that I rented out. Things were just going really well. So I go to Vegas. I get back from Vegas one day. This was September 23rd, 2015. Get back from Vegas. I was hungover. Couldn't really move for a few days, and you know, one of these days, this was a Wednesday, 23rd. At 5 o'clock in the morning, all of a sudden I heard this pounding on the door. And I wake up and like, I don't even really believe I heard what I did. And my girlfriend got up and I'm like, is somebody not really knocking on the door? She's like, I don't know. She goes out there, the dogs go crazy, start barking, go out to the living room. I kind of slowly put my shirt on and putting some clothes on. And, sure enough, pounding on the door again. Now I'm getting mad. Like, who's banging on my door at 5 o'clock in the morning? Like, I'm getting mad. So I get my clothes on. Now I'm walking out there with a purpose. Walk through this living room again, floor to ceiling windows, the Manhattan. It's still probably dark out, so, or the sun's just glinting over on all of the overlooking Manhattan, the buildings. It was gorgeous. And I come around the corner, and my girlfriend's coming from the door, and she said that they're covering the people. I can't see who it is. And I'm like, well, why don't you answer? Now I'm mad. Now I'm about to go find out who this is. I'll go figure this out. I'm going to tell this person exactly why they shouldn't be knocking on my door, pounding on it at 5 o'clock in the morning. So I run to the door. I freaking swing it wide open. I'm about ready to scream at somebody, and it is about 15 federal officers in bulletproof vests with guns pointed at my head. And so the first guy was the postmaster, the post office, federal security, who originally found that package that leaked that 2 years ago. And he's the one who pushed to get me a part of Operation Cyber Juice, because he found this packages and he made it his personal, he was a cowboy, made it his personal vendetta to it, and he told me about it. Told me how he pushed to get this to happen. So he put his hand on the door and he just says, okay. And that okay was kind of for the people behind him, because I'm not violent, I don't have any guns, nothing like that. So he was saying, okay, this is okay. He's not going to resist. But it was also to me to say, okay, we got you. So they take us to put us in handcuffs, they put us on a stool. This lady comes up and says, do you know why we're here? I said, no, I don't. I have no idea why you're here. And I knew why they were there. The only, something that for some reason gave me a little bit of solace was the FBI agents who were there. Some of them started searching. The FBI agents, more than one, couldn't help themselves but come up to me and, hey, this is an awesome house. This is an awesome apartment. Amazing. Thanks. It's not mine anymore. Okay. So I went, I didn't even spend the night in jail. I went and I got put immediately on pretrial release. It took 2 years for me to actually go to prison. I got 6.5 years. I think that's about it. All right.